Hey everybody, and welcome to our session on assistive robotic manipulators. And I'd like to just start introducing myself and my two co-presenters there. My name is Dan Dingo by Didi. I'm a faculty from the Rehab Science and Technology Department here at University of Pittsburgh. And this is one of my research interests, really try to improve how user can interact with this robot more intuitively and easily. And so they can support these technology can support their everyday living. And I'll let Josh to introduce yourself.
My name is Joshua Chung. All right, my name is Joshua Chung, and I'm a research scientist at the HRO, working on this robotic arm project and all the other project, and also the lab manager of the HRO for BioLab.
I'm Breelyn Styler, also at the Human Engineering Research Lab. I'm a postdoc transitioning to VA research scientist next month.
Okay, so I'd like to just warm up and then ask the audience, how many of you actually stopped by the Partner in Medicine when you first enter into the exhibition hall and try the robotic arm? They have two wheelchair-mounted robotic arm. One is green color, one is blue color. How many of you have given it a try? That's great. Okay, that's great. That helps, but also we're going to give you some basic introduction on these assistive robotic manipulators. And let's just get started. We don't have any conflict of interest to disclose, but I'd like to acknowledge our funding source. We have a grant currently on assistive robotic manipulator from the VA Rehab R&D Services. And so that's what I'd like to disclose. And in terms of the learning objective today, we'd like to just introduce some basic things about how these robotic arms and can be controlled. Either use traditional joystick, and also we're going to show you some other means to do it. Like wheelchair, you have so many ways to control wheelchairs, and robotic arms, we also try to look into some alternative control as well. And also we will show you like some of the autonomous ways that we're doing, similar to wheelchair too, like Lucy is doing the autonomous driving. And so we're trying to do autonomous manipulation as well. Oops. So this is our introduction. This is our outlines. I'll just kick it off with some basic introductions, and then I'll turn it to Josh to introduce these manual control interfaces, and then Breelyn will finish up with the autonomous interface and some of the lessons we learned. So on this slide, I'd like to draw your attention to kind of have a comparison there, like on mobility AT and manipulation AT. As many of you know that from the exhibition hall or all the sessions throughout the ISS, there's so many, like a broad range of mobility ATs that we have now. And from manual wheelchairs to power assist to scooters and power wheelchairs, all kinds of power wheelchairs that support advanced seating functions, and also the advanced one, the smart one like Lucy. And these mobility devices can really helpful, like increase people's chance to move around and to get from A to B. But when people get to the destination, the good chance is they still need to do something. They want to do something. So this something will involve some manipulation involving using your arms and fingers and hand. And so when it comes to the manipulation assistive technology, there's really not a lot of choices there. And a lot of people are still using, like if they can, and they can use those mechanical grabbers, or even service animals could help to some extent with manipulation tasks. And there's some dedicated devices, like the first one that you saw over here is the OB, like it's the dedicated smart feeding devices, the feeding robots. And also these two robotic arms, in terms of the universal robotic arms, there's really just only 3 on the market, and only one of this, the Jayco robotic arm that you probably have seen in the Partner in Medicine booth. That's the only one that's available in the US market right now. And it's produced by a company called Kinova and from Canada. And this one is, the other one that you saw over here is called iArm, and it's from Netherlands, and it's not available in the US market. And there's a newer one that's kind of copied on Kinova Jayco arm and in Poland recently. So that's the only 3. And this is the only one that people can get from our market here. there are a lot of research platforms out there. Like this one is called Hello Robot, and it has a simple robotic arm that put it on top of a mobile base. But these research platform is really just designed for researchers. They're not supposed to be given to the clients to use it on their daily basis in the home. So even though there are a lot of there's really limitations in terms of the choices of manipulation assistive technology, but they are really important because this is one of the interesting research. A group of researchers wants to quantify how much we use our arms and hands on an everyday basis. And so what they did is they want to show these technology could be these tasks. Maybe the assistive robotics could be supporting them, and what we need to design these assistive robots to support what kind of task. So what they did is they used two ways to kind of quantify this. One is on the yellow part showing that they instrument two apartment with many sensors in the apartment. All the objects, if you want to interact with them, they will document it. So they mine the sensors to understand on a daily basis how a person would be interacting with all the everyday objects in your home. And the blue one is another methods they tried. They do the live logging videos. So basically, they just record the videos and then to label the videos to understand how we are using our hand and arms. And it's interesting that you can see from the sensor data, it seems like we operate the doors a lot in our daily life. And it's 90 times a day we are dealing with all kinds of doors, not necessarily just our entry doors, and a lot of other doors, cabinet, closet, even drawers, and all the appliances you have to open and close. So those are seems like a very typical task. And electronic use, we use a lot of our computers, smartphones, and things like that also involve a lot of upper extremity functions, and of course, drinking and eating. So those are the list that showing that how we're using the hand functions and how we can actually design the robots to try to help with those functions. And this is just a simple trajectory showing that on the timeline of this assistive robotic manipulator starting from 1960s to currently. And unfortunately, everything before the iArm here in 2008 and the Jayco robotic arm from 2009, everything before that is no longer available on the market. And so it's really, it is a small market, but it's a growing market. I'll show you some of the things maybe it is promising. It's definitely this assistive manipulator is growing. And also I'll show you how we talk to the users and to find out this can really beneficial to their everyday living. So we used to do a lot of research by bringing people into our research laboratory to actually try out different things with the robotic arm that we designed. But we realized that's really not the best way to understand how these robots are actually benefiting people, what are the challenges they receive, because that would be their first time encounter the robots. So we recently completed a small study to conduct a really in-depth interview with 11 users, and these are the owners of the assistive robotic manipulators, and that's put on their wheelchair. So these are power wheelchair users, have the robotic arm on their power wheelchair, and then they use it on a daily basis. And so the age range is 24 to 60 years old, and the experience using the Jayco robotic arm is very varied, from 3 months to 2 of the individual actually use it for over 8 years. And so it's really a wide range of people using these. And as you can see from the diagnosis, this is pretty much captured the typical user profile for an assisted wheelchair-mounted robotic arm, and muscular dystrophy, SMA, cervical level spinal cord injury, ALS, MS, CP, and also some rare conditions like the arthrogryposis. And so these are the populations that could potentially benefit from this technology. We also asked the individuals to kind of rank their self-report their upper extremity functions using a standardized questionnaire called Capability for Upper Extremity questionnaires. So basically, I asked them their ability to reach, to lift, to push, pull, and also position their arm and wrist, and also use the hand functions and finger functions. So as you can see, these are the numbers. If you don't have any deficit in the upper extremity functions impairment, then you're supposed to get 128 score, like the full score. And as you can see, these are the individual scores from that match with their diagnosis, and it's very limited, except that the last person has a little bit better functions, but other people in our study, they definitely has very limited upper extremity functions. But they are all able to use their wheelchairs. So they are able to use all different ways to control their power wheelchairs. And then the way they control the power wheelchairs could be used to control the robotic arms. Most people do use the same control methods. So Josh will get into that a little bit more. Some people use different methods. And also, like you can see, the wheelchair type is also, they use all kinds of wheelchairs too. So these robotic arms get to mounted on Permobiles, Invocare, Rovi, Quantum, so all kinds of wheelchairs that could be mounted. And in terms of funding, this is a big change. 5 years ago, I would say a lot of people don't have a funding source and their insurance doesn't support this. But now, as you can see, like we still have 4 people self-pay, but the rest of people either goes through their private insurance and Medicaid, work comp, and one of them is gifted. So by talking to the owner of the partner in medicine, he actually said 95% of their clients now going through insurance, and only 5% people pay out of pocket. So definitely there is an improvement in the funding environment for these technologies, and it's still limited, and people has to be really persistent to go through appeal process, and sometimes multiple appeals, but eventually people do succeed and be able to get their robotic arm if they really insist they want one. And we also ask people actually tell us what the most common task that you do use these assisted robotic arms. And I guess it's no surprise to everybody here, drinking is the one that they use it the most. Like a majority of the people using J-code to keep themselves stay hydrated. That's very important to every diagnosis. And so they don't have to rely on the caregiver. So they can actually drink anytime, like when they want it. And the other thing is a lot of people use the J-code robotic arm to kind of manipulate the body part, and either like you want to scratch things that you can't reach. And also like people with SMA and then muscular dystrophy, they want to support their head. When their head is put down, like looking at a computer operated there, then they can't raise it on their own. So the J-code robotic arm can push their head up so they can start doing other things. And also like they need a help to put their feet together, to reposition their arms. So those kind of tasks are very common for people to use the assistive robotic manipulators. And obviously there's a lot of tasks here. I put it here like a navigation of the environment, press the elevator buttons, press the light for signal, the light traffic signals. And self-care activities, shaving, brushing hair, and also even for some medical use to assist with the tube feeding and suction of saliva and things like that. So definitely, and also in addition to like drinking, eating is also another one that people use it for help. And this might be more interesting here too. We also asked them like what kind of tasks they're really proud of completing using the J-code robotic arm. So people has different strategies to share with us. And some people just mentioned the most complex task they tried. And some people gave us very kind of personal, like a meaningful activities they can accomplish with J-code. And I guess out of all of them, we're really impressed with this carving a pumpkin, and I cannot do it well. I know like a lot of the people may not be able to do it. Use J-code is supposed to be really difficult, but this client that we interviewed, he's really skilled using J-code. So it's showing you the potential of the technology. Not everybody can, but some people are able to master the really difficult use of the wrist mode, because the wrist mode is always difficult, how you orient your wrist, and not only you can rotate it, you can tilt it up and down, you can also like move it left and right. So that kind of rotation is really hard to imagine. But with carving this pumpkins, you need a lot of those motions to be able to do. And other things like people want to challenge themselves. Can I cook a box of mac and cheese? And so one of our clients, and then she mentioned that she really challenged herself, wants to see to what extent this robot arm can help her. And she said there are only 2 steps she cannot do, and basically just drain the pasta and also stir things like the cheese in. So that's the hard part. And she was able to even manage to put the water in the pot because she said she can carry the pot, but she can get a glass of water and dump it just multiple times that she can actually do that. So there are a lot of like interesting use. People actually really innovate about using these technologies. One of the things really touching to us is this this story that one of our client, and she really want to get rid of an old piece of garment, but her caregiver doesn't want to do that. She asked several times, but because I think she said because the garment is loose, it's easy to put on her. That's probably why the caregiver doesn't want to get rid of it. And her reason is nothing is wrong, so just keep it there. And the first time she got this robotic arm, and the first thing she did is she went to the drawer and then opened the drawer and picked that up and then dump it to the garbage can. So I think that's really kind of showing you the technology can really empower people's choice. Like, I want to do things, but I can't do it. And so sometimes they have to listen to whoever take care of them, and they can't really make that kind of decision themselves. So a lot of interesting stories here. It really shows like this kind of manipulation aid can be very versatile and can support a lot of things people want to do. Oops. Not sure why it goes there. Hold on. We also asked them, is J-code easy to use and easy to learn? So we asked them to read this statement, J-code is easy to use. As you can see, a little bit more than half like saying it is easy to use, and then the other half is kind of disagree. And it's the interesting observation is this is really not related to the time, like the experience they're using J-code. Like even the person who used it for 3 months, he would rate this is extremely easy to use. And people who use for 8 years, and they will say, no, I still don't have a hon of it. And so I think it's like there's a lot of interesting things behind like what motivate people to use it better, and what factors predicting that their efficiency of using it. Not only the personal factors, but also their surroundings. Some people, like if they have a very sustainable, kind of reliable caregivers, if their spouse is their caregivers, they feel like these robotic arm can take longer to do a task, so they may not motivate it to learn if the caregiver is always there to help. Some people live alone, they may be more motivated to do this on their own. So I think there's a lot of factors that plays like how people are willing to learn, and then eventually feel that's easy to use. And so the learning part is also kind of a mimic that most people thinking it's not hard to learn, and there's still people thinking like it's difficult, takes a lot for me to learn that. And so that gives us right now, there's really not in mobility, we have a whole process of prescribing these technology from the very formal assessment to all the way of these training. So right now, this process is not really very well established for these assistive robotic manipulators, but maybe there could be more work can be done in that area. So this is my last slide. I'll transition to Josh, but I like to show you like some of the quotes. It's really there's so many very like touching like quotes we collected, and it's a lot of like comments on independence. I can do things on my own. Like it's really, really beneficial. But these quotes is really showing you that like kind of like showing you the personal side. Like a lot of time people mention that the caregiver may not be reliable. The caregiver they may not have 24/7 they can afford. And so before the J-code robotic arm, they need to plan everything out. They need to think about, am I gonna get hungry? Am I gonna be hungry? Am I gonna be thirsty? Am I gonna use anything? So they need to tell the caregiver to prepare those before they leave. And right now, like with the J-code robotic arm, and they feel like they don't have to do that. They can do a lot of things on their own. And so this is a really nice quote. A person mentioned that it gave me a reliable source of mobility. So even the caregiver not showing up, and they can still do the things on their own. It may take a little bit more time, but they are able to help themselves to do those things that they want to do. And another interesting thing that we didn't know, like before the study, is this, like you can actually wipe my eyes when you cry, and then you don't want to ask other people to do this, and people will ask you why. And now you can actually just do that on your own. You can get a piece of tissue that you can do these things. It's just a privacy thing. So overall, I think there's a lot of things, a lot of benefit with this technology. It's more than just the independence. I think it's more so like the human rights thing, or like the autonomy that allow people to be able to do things whenever they want to do it their own way. And so I think that's the part that I think it get neglected. Even when we do a lot of research, we didn't really think about that side. And so this is really interesting research we have done. But also we discover a lot of challenges too. Like people still feel this technology is not that easy to use, and they wish there's better ways for them to interact, more effective way for them to interact. So I'll turn that to Josh so he can explain a little bit more on the control side.
So this will be a little bit more technical side. So everyone think about the wheelchair robotic arm can be just put on the wheelchair and the plugging and everything works. But in fact, it's not that. It's not like that. So so this is all the on the left side will be the interface that the user can interact with. So for example, like the wheelchair joystick, some people use the sip and puff and or head arrays, and some people use Penta 3 switch or Chung joystick, and some people has that little toggle box that to control their sitting functions. So everything goes into the wheelchair controller or different controller devices that come up with a wheelchair, and most wheelchair use the RNet bus. So which is kind of collect all the data and sending to different devices, for example, like the sitting systems or the driving wheelchair motor drivers to drive the wheelchair. And also those can be sent into the robotic arm as well. So all this interface is, all this kind of interface is called integrated control interface, which is using a one single control interface, either the joystick or head array, to control more than two devices, for example, like the sitting functions or wheelchair or the robotic arms. So go to next one. So this is just showing one of the example that you can try it downstairs in the exhibit hall with the Jaco arm, but it can be very person by person, depends on their ability to control their wheelchair. So on the right side is the wheelchair controller that go through the RNet and go into this RNet input-output module, which turns everything into this DB9 ECU connectors, and then sent to the little box on the bottom, which is the made by Kinova, that translate all the wheelchair joystick messages into the robotic motion. So think about this one. So the wheelchair only provide the two-axis movement, which is forward, backward, and the left and right. But the robotic arms comes with more than 6 degrees of freedom. So it means that the robot can go forward, backward, left and right, up and down, and twisting this way or this way or this way. And also open, close the fingers. So for example, the Jaco arm usually has 9 degrees of freedom, including the 3 fingers. But for the control side, it will be like the 8 degrees of freedom. So which sometimes they use a 3 finger moving together or 2 finger moving together. So that will be from the lower control input device to control really high degree of freedom robotic arms. So in order to do that, we have to have a way to switching between different modes in order to control different motion of the robotic arm. So that goes into this one. So on the wheelchair, we already have this mode switching function. For example, we have a one mode button on the wheelchair controller to switch from drive mode to the sitting mode. And some people use the Bluetooth or the IR for control TVs, radios, and then go to the arm. And inside the arm also have another mode switch to control between the XY, that means moving in X forward, backward, and left, right. And the B1 would be the going up and down, and the rotation this way. And the B2 is orientation, that is the moving, keep fingertip at the same location and moving the wrist to left and right and up and down. And the last one will be open, close fingers. So that means other than the original wheelchair mode switch, we have another mode switch just for the robotic arm to switch inside these 4 different modes. And some user using, so this is, we call the basic mode. Some people use advanced mode, which we can record the robotic arm positions and replay it. So that will be another mode switch for the advanced functions. All right, here is the video that shows the really basic control in case you don't have a chance to try it. So right here, we have a mode switch on the wheelchair, switching between the driving to the robotic arm. And on the robotic arm, we could use the blue button to switch to the translation mode, which is moving X or Y. And press and hold that blue button, it can go back to the home position, and then go back to the retract position to store the arm. So that could be one button, depends on single click, or press and hold to go to different functions based on the user's preference. All right, so that concludes the integrated control interface. However, during the interview with the end user, we found that some users prefer to have a separate control interface, which means we have one joystick for the wheelchair, and we have another joystick or another button or header raise just for the robotic arm. So they can do driving and manipulation simultaneously. So we happen to have a client who really want to try this robotic arm, and he has cerebral palsy, which it's called dyskinetic cerebral palsy. So he has a lot of uncontrolled movement. So he really want to try it, and he had a hard time just using the wheelchair joystick. So we create this thumb joystick, but it can be applied to head switch or chin joystick or any other current existing input devices. So what this thumb joystick has is a yellow button on right here. So that is the thumb joystick, and the 4 buttons around. We can set up the other 4 buttons into different functions. For example, like open, close the fingers. So here is the video that shows how he used this interface. So you can see that he has a lot of uncontrolled movement during the task, but his thumb is pretty steady in that position. So that's one place we found is really working situation for him, and he can control use the thumb joystick control the robotic arm to pick up the box. And all right, so that's this one. So on the research side, we also interested in the other kind of interface, like the voice interface. So for the voice interface, the things we are looking at is what kind of command we want the robot to to be able to control the robotic arms. So here shows the different utterances we want the phone app to listen to and to be interactive with the robotic arms. So the wake word is the robot. So here is the video that shows how this works.
You can use voice control to automatically move the arm, wrist, and open and close the gripper.
Robot, go forward. Robot, go forward a little. Robot, go backward a lot. Robot, open. Robot, close. Robot, rotate clockwise. Robot, rotate counterclockwise. Robot, go down a little. Robot, go up a lot. Robot, hold.
All right. So another thing we tried in our lab is to use the touchscreen interface. So the touchscreen interface is to have 4 different menus. So pretty similar to what we have for the joystick control, which is that we have a limited input degree of freedom to control 6 or 9 degree of freedom of the robot. But for this one, we have a 1 page for the arm mode, which is to move forward, backward, left and right, up and down. The other one is called wrist mode, which is to do all the rotation. And the third one is the auto mode that going to back home. And the grip forward is to pointing the gripper forward. The grip down is to pointing the gripper downward. So easier for them to pick up something on the floor. And the last one will be the finger mode for the open close fingers. Here's the video showing how to use the smartphone to control the robotic arm with a touchscreen interface.
This is the touchscreen controller for the robotic arm. It is an app that you can get on your phone or tablet. On the screen, you can press buttons to move the arm, and you can also change how fast the arm moves using the slider. There are 2 ways you can control the arm. The first is tap and hold control. With tap and hold control, you tap and hold on the direction you want the arm to move and release the button when you want the arm to stop. The arm continues to move until you release the button. There are also 2 screens for moving the arm. They're called arm mode and wrist mode. In arm mode, you can move the arm forward, back, left, right, up and down, and you can even move diagonally. Sliding the slider to the left decreases the speed, and sliding the slider to the right increases the speed. In wrist mode, you can twist the arm around to whichever orientation you want. You can rotate the hand, turn it to the side, or face it down. The second mode is tap control. With tap control, you tap a direction once and the arm moves a little bit in that direction and stops after a second. You can control the distance it travels by changing the speed using the speed slider. If you want to pick something up, you can control the fingers by selecting finger mode and pressing the buttons on the screen. If you want the arm to quickly go to a certain position, you can use automatic mode. This mode has buttons you can press to make the arm move to a certain position by itself. For example, there are buttons to face the arm down or sideways, which helps for when you need to pick something up from the top or the side. There is also a home button, which moves the arm to its home position.
Right, so that concludes the menu interface.
This is the touchscreen control.
Sorry. All right, I will hand to Breelyn to talk about the autonomy.
Yeah, so I did also want to say, as part of the interview that Dee Dee was describing earlier, we actually showed the current owners these different videos that we're showing you, and we got some of their feedback. So I'm going to kind of go through this part a little bit faster because I'm not sure how interested people are on the software architecture side of things, so we can, sort of get to those themes. But if you guys have any questions on the development of these things, another thing I wanted to say is I know the Canova representative has discussed with us that they are working with a company to do some of their own touchscreen, eye gaze, and these different controls, hopefully in the next couple years. So pretty interesting stuff. So this is just a general crash course. When I say autonomy, I mean from the software side. So in general, autonomous systems, they require some sort of sensing from the environment. So in our case, we're getting information from the environment from a camera, but you could think about LiDAR, encoders on motors. You don't know the world around you in robotics unless you can sense that information and take it in. And usually there's a perception module that takes that information in, tells the system about the environment. What are the obstacles? What are different information that I need to incorporate to make decisions? And then there's some high-level algorithms that are doing some planning, some control, thinking about the context of the environment, how different objects interact with each other, and what are some rules or what are some learning that can be used in those contexts. And then for our systems, there's this, what we call in the robotics world, shared autonomy, shared control aspect, which is the user is providing input. They're sharing in the teleoperation. They're using a touch interface, and it's really important, that they're the driving part of that system. So in the human robotic interaction world, we refer to this as arbitration. So arbitration is this idea of how is the software system providing control versus how is a user providing control. How are those controls combined, in what way? And then how is that applied to actually move the robot? So we're going to show some examples of that. There was a recent paper in this area that sort of that summarized shared control and shared autonomy in a way that I really liked, which is shared control are the systems that are pushed by the user. So we are going to show a video example of a shared control interface. So it's where the user is initiating the control, or the control is predefined by the user. There's also a lot of research in shared autonomy, but this is where the software is actually pushing the arbitration. So it adapts automatically. So for example, a very quick ignore math thing, shared autonomy example is when you're blending the control. So the user is moving the joystick themselves, and then there's a lot of research with trying to predict what object the user might be reaching for. And so then the system underlyingly with that prediction will then provide more assistance, maybe increase the speed or do a more automatic grasp as it's coming towards the object to make it easier for the user. So that would be an example of shared autonomy because the user isn't actually doing anything that's adding the software assistance. They're not initiating it. It's the underlying system, sensing the environment that is doing that initiation. So we have an example in our lab with a study that we're doing with shared control with a kitchen task. So essentially it's opening a cabinet, grabbing a cup, filling it with water, and then having the user drink from the cup. And the reason that this is shared control is because the user actually initiates when the system takes over assistance for them. So the idea is the user manually moves the joystick towards these tags in the environment that give information to the system, and then they can press a circle on the tag and the system will take over. And it's easier for a video to explain it. So this would be just one possible example of shared control. You could also have the user, for example, moving the direction of the joystick and the system automatically controlling speed, a different way of separating.
In automatic software control, the user moves the joystick towards fiducial tags in the environment, and the software automatically takes over to perform the fine manipulation portions of the task. For example, for opening a cabinet, the joystick is moved until the camera mounted on the robot's wrist highlights the cabinet tag. Once highlighted, the touchscreen displays a circle for selection. If selected, the robotic software automatically completes the motion of the arm through the opening of the cabinet.
So we did show this whole video to current owners to kind of get their perceptions on, what do you think of this, and where would you use it, or is this just not something you would ever use?
Another example is shown for retrieving a cup.
We also have another task, which I refer to as overcomplicated popcorn, which we're going to be showing in the next part of the video, which is dispensing and pouring, and then at the end opening the microwave.
In this example, the user moves the robotic arm until it sees the tag on the popcorn dispenser. Then, once selected, the robotic arm will automatically dispense popcorn into the cup, retrieve the cup, and pour the cup into the popcorn jug.
So in our study, we compared this control and their perceptions on it to them manually controlling through the joystick the entire task. One of the interesting things that came out of it is when we found that we show them this automatic control ahead of time, it almost gives them these kind of tips on how to go about maybe doing some of these actions, because most of our users are completely novice. They hadn't used a robotic arm before. So we're thinking this could even be used as a training tool. So for example, the robot is pushing the kernels into the front of the cup to make it easier when it's poured to get them all in the cup without it spilling everywhere. And some of these actions that are very difficult for users, they require what we call 2 degrees of freedom. So pouring is actually, you're rotating the wrist, but you're also kind of moving the arm just very slightly to the right. And with opening a cabinet, it's an arc. So you're moving in this, this double direction, where if you're trying to do that with a 2-axis joystick, you're constantly rotating the wrist, moving the arm back, rotating the wrist, moving the arm back. And while it's possible, it does, require a lot more effort. So that was some feedback that, that they liked, that could make those types of tasks more efficient.
In this example, we will show automatically retrieving a jug from 2 different locations. The fiducial tag allows the software system to know the location of the jug, regardless of where the jug is placed.
And then the point of demonstrating this idea of using tags and being able to move objects around was to kind of show, would you be willing to augment your environment, kind of how much, if there was a system. Obviously, in a perfect world, we'd want to learn all the objects and have a fancy machine learning model in the background that would automatically detect these. But for deploying them in the real world, we're just curious if people would mind the tags. And interestingly enough, no one minded it. If anything, they wanted to be able to do it and have control of the programming of it. So, I could have a lot of fun with these tags, was some of the quotes that we got, which is kind of interesting. So to give you a little bit of feedback on the owner's perspectives of these controls, some of the themes that we extracted was, in general, they really liked the idea of just having the ability to have multiple controls as backup. When their voice gets tired or their body gets tired from using the joystick, They want to be able to have something else they can use. But that being said, they prefer not having a lot of additional devices, right? Like how can, we integrate these better all together was a common theme. And then in general, decreasing the number of mode switches, not only for controlling the arm, but also switching between the wheelchair and their arm. In a lot of cases, they're using the same joystick for both. And so it actually took them a lot of time to start using the robotic arm, because then they'd have to switch through all their wheelchair modes and they couldn't use both at the same time. For both the touchscreen and the voice, they identified very quickly that when you're doing some of these controls, like for example, voice, move a little, move a lot, that's super arbitrary. How are you actually gonna, be able to do precise motions with that? Same with the touchscreen. They preferred the tap and hold over the tap because they felt the tap would be more imprecise. And they all recognize, I have a lot of difficulty maybe with dexterity. Everyone has, varying degrees of abilities. And the community is so supportive. They almost always said, I don't see this for me, but I know a peer where this would really be applicable. So just again, having more options for people with different abilities is very important. And then for the software autonomy opinions, we actually got a lot of really good feedback. And one of the most important ones was, okay, I think I would like to try it all the time. I actually enjoy the challenge of trying to do things with the robotic arm. It's like a big puzzle. Maybe if it's a task that becomes repetitive that I do all the time, then I would want to press a button and let it do it for me. Or some of the cases where, they're trying to open a door and they get a bunch of attention from an outsider. Oh, that's the robotic arm. Show me how it works. And we had one participant that was saying, I don't actually like this attention because I'm trying to focus on opening the door and it requires some concentration. Okay, if a lot of precision is required, maybe that's a good spot to also have software assist me a little bit more. So in general, to conclude the talk, we've showed you a bunch of different possible control input modalities, and there's many more that different people are working on. A little bit about how autonomous software assistants might be able to help make those controls easier, and this idea of something called a control authority preference. So we're going to have studies that look more into, what does it mean to sort of switch off between a user and some software assistants, and the fact that the user, always wants to be in control of this process. So how do we make it more seamless without sacrificing any kind of independence, where the robotic arm is empowering and a function of themselves, and not just another entity doing something for them. So accessible design, inclusive design. So something that was really important from the interviews that we did was just showing, going to the user first and understanding, what current owners want as you're going through the design, which is a common theme that you guys are probably all very much aware of. But one of the other themes that was extracted that was really important was a lot of the owners thought the initial training and setup and delivery process was great, but they felt that they got to a point where they kind of plateaued, or based on their different ability, they wanted more of a community that would kind of give them more tips or challenge them a bit. And so we got a lot of comments about them wanting to have an OT come in and follow up, just to, give them some extra ideas they hadn't thought of, or some different added objects, maybe special objects that work best with the robotic arm that would make it a little bit easier for them, or things like that, now that they felt like they had mastered, the majority of the manual control. So I thought that was important that those types of programs would be thought of more. And that concludes our talk, and we're happy to take questions. If anyone has questions. It can be the mic delivery. Oh, there you go.
What was the most difficult task that a person could complete besides the pumpkin carving? Do you see that this could be something like frosting a cake, or something that would be meaningful, like somebody painting something? Or I'm an OT and I work in low vision, and the reason this is really important to me too is there could be some kind of potential that someone who didn't have good vision, not someone who was born blind, but someone whose vision changed, that maybe this type of technology could also be very assistive to them. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on, where do you see like the end, like what would be the most, or even playing the piano or something, something that's really, very deliberately high motor function.
So I'll do my quick answer in case Dee might have a different one. So there's a caveat with those most prideful, challenging. Almost a lot of the participants said that this was a task they did once, and that they really hadn't had the opportunity to do it again. They were just looking for a challenge. This is sort of not an everyday thing that they would do. One of them as well was like grabbing a potato chip, I think, and then they just ended up crushing it.
I think he managed to be able to not crushing it.
Yeah,
That's why he's
initially got it. Yeah. To be honest, I don't see it anywhere close to like playing a piano. I think that's very difficult. Even the pumpkin carving, we were sort of astounded. He had a special way of holding the knife, and so that made it a little bit easier. And it did take like an entire day or something.
I think he said 2 hours. It's
Okay.
not too bad.
So it really depends on the person's ability, I would say, and then how long they've mastered it.
Yeah,
I don't see it being used for anything sort of that crazy sophisticated, but yeah.
Yeah, piano definitely no, because you need a dexterous hand. And I think there are a lot of research on the robotics world. I mean, when I was a student, I work on dexterous robotic hand. It's not that dexterous with this hand. And so definitely not. But there are a lot of tasks, people maybe underutilize it a little bit. And I think also people need to be persistent and trying to learn the wrist functions, because a lot of our participants, they are very good at translational mode. But when it gets to the wrist, I mean, they understand rotation, but they don't understand a lot of the pitch and yaw. And so they don't know how I can combine them together to do it. So I think if there's any, like if we want to do anything like that, would be the mode that we can focus to make sure it's easy and intuitive. And I think a lot of the tasks, like Breelyn mentioned, they really just try it once, and time consuming. I think it takes time. I think the person who made the mac and cheese, and she said it took her like more than an hour, but if we do it, it's probably just 10 minutes, something like that. So it's the time thing is really like our videos, we didn't really slow down. And then there are a lot of videos, if you see online, they would do like 4 times, 8 times the speed. And so it's definitely the speed is the limitations there.
But I think one of the other things too would be if you give them an opportunity to challenge themselves, like you already said, and maybe if there was a competition, that might be enjoyable at one point. And then the other question I had was just regarding when you do this in a future study, if you extrapolate out the capacity the person has versus reduction of caregiver burden, I think that would also be very, very interesting to find out, which you've kind of done that already. You've said some nice things about how people said they don't have to ask somebody to do something that's a little private to them. Right. I know working in insurances and everything, the more you can demonstrate that whatever product you have is cost effective, not only for the person, but also for the system. It's tremendous. Thank you. Great presentation.
Thank you. Definitely agree with that. I think the caregiver piece is not only, I think we didn't interview the caregivers, but anecdotally, some of the participants that we know personally mentioned that not only they gain, because they don't feel stressed when the caregiver is not around, but also whoever cared them, especially the spouse, and they feel more comfortable leaving the person alone in the home for a longer period of time, because otherwise they don't feel comfortable to leave the person there, and then they just go out to do their errands. So I think that's the other thing, I think not only the person, but also the caregiver benefits from that as well. So, and I think there's another question.
Yeah, I had a couple. Great presentation, thank you. I probably missed this, but the app, is that something you developed for the purposes of the study, or is that commercially available?
Yeah, we basically try to test it different kind of interfaces. So we've been developing different kind of Josh has been the one designing different touch interface, and there's another student who listed here. She couldn't make it today. She developed it more for research. But as far as we know, JCO has a plan to launch an app version and sometime next year. And so I think that will be a commercially available version that people can use, because that gave people another way to control it, and then also gave people another way that not only they can drive the chair, at the same time they can control the robotic arm if they want to.
My other question was, I know that I understand that there's a difference in the degrees of freedom of movement between the chair input device and what's required of the robotic arm, but when we think about some of these populations, finding another location or way to input something is really tricky. And so is there a way, or is anyone looking at, how can we utilize, either change the chair input devices that they're utilizing to drive the chair, or make that interface so that they can take what they do have and use for driving and somehow make it so that it has more degrees of freedom of movement.
Yeah, I think that is definitely a most challenging part, and we definitely will want to look into it, because many of the times people's complaint is not only the arm itself to change the mode, like Josh mentioned, is between the different mode of the wheelchair as well. And it's interestingly, some people, you can set up the chair differently too. Some people actually, if they don't complain about simultaneously control their chair and the arm, because their chair is set up in a way that they can just long press a button, then they can jump between the J-code mode and driving mode. Well, other users don't have that capacity. Their chair is not set up that way. And so I think even just small tweak can actually change the way they interacted a lot. But also I agree with you. We have people using the train control. We have people using headery. We also have a person actually, he has to use, I don't know, you guys heard of this kind of smart home device called FingerBot, and he needs to use the FingerBot to press the button for him. And he used his iPhone voice to control the FingerBot to do it, because he has no other ways to do it. And so I think there's a lot of different ways. People are actually pretty innovative themselves to think about this, but I think it's worthwhile to look into all kinds of control methods, because there are a lot of variety out there, and then definitely we can't get one model for everybody.
Yeah, and I think because like the output modules, I think, are digital, and it seems like something like the robotic arm would benefit from more of a proportional sort of output. But I am not an engineer, so I'm no T, so I don't know what
Yes,
I don't know the
right.
details. But like these are the functional things I think about when I think about higher level patients that don't have the ability to, access another input device.
Yeah, you're definitely right. I think right now, yes.
Sorry, hi everyone, my name is Claudio. Well, we're downstairs, we're at Monevo, so we can control the Jayco using smart glasses, and it works proportional. So there is different ways to control robotic arms, also with different input methods. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great to know. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. But I think, there needs to be more research done, and also more guidance given to the clinical practice, because these arms are getting more used, and because insurance are kind of loosened up a little bit, we can justify this for medical necessity. So I think there are more clinical guideline that would be really helpful to push this forward too.